Hi everyone, welcome back to Eclectic Soul. I am Jen. This is
Jen. Hello, everybody.
Hello. So,
we are back.
Yeah, we're back.
Yes, we're back with
Ta-la! What's it called?
Well, we're doing the Rhys POVs.
Yes.
And we're on Mist and Fury right now.
Yes.
So we did the first two short stories.
Tamlin's on the screen.
Yeah, I have a screensaver going. It's ACOTAR themed.
Yes.
So if we make weird faces.
Because I hate Tamlin.
But we read two stories.
Yes.
It's the beginning of A Court of Mist and Fury, but it's from Rhys's perspective. The first one was called Hello, FEYRE, Darling. And the second one is called I Dare You.
And they're both very cute.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first one, it was more endearing because of what he was going through, watching her going through. And so it's like, you know, he felt absolutely horrible for her. But the second one is kind of funny.
Yeah, the second one is more there's a lot more dialogue and interaction because he saves her from the wedding and then he brings her
Nothing like winnowing in to a wedding with a room full of everybody who does not like you, hate your guts, and think you are going to harm them when all you're there is to fulfill the bargain. So that is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But the bargain that you were there to fulfill, you really weren't worried about the bargain. You were more worried about hence the person the bargain was with.
Right.
So that's quite interesting. So, how can a man sleep next to a woman whom he claims he loves? Not budge when the woman he loves climbs out of bed, doesn't even notice she's gone, goes and buries herself pretty much in the bathroom to get sick. You mean to tell me you can't hear her vomit? You can't hear her puking her guts up? You can't hear her whimpers? You can't hear the fact that she's in tears? Excuse me?
I mean, I think the question is maybe he did know and he just didn't want to deal with it too. It's bad. It's bad either way.
It is bad.
Because it's like if he didn't know, it's like, God, how
fucking ignorant are you? Sorry, I'm a cusser. I will cuss.
It's almost unbelievable. It's like, how could he not know?
Exactly. How can you claim, I'm sorry, but how can one person say that they're in love with someone and not have empathy for them, not have compassion for them? But here's Rhys sitting in his bed miles away because he's got this connection, this empathy, this compassion, because there's a bond. And he's sitting there, sitting in his bathroom with his back up against the wall, kind of like in awe of what's going on in front of him, what he could see through her eyes. So he knows she's at the toilet getting sick. So he's there sitting next to her because that's the most comfort he can give her. Because he can't send a message down the bond to her. He doesn't want to spook her out. He doesn't want to upset her. And it's just like, you know, for 3 months, he kept saying in that story, for 3 months, he gave her time with him, with Tamlin, in the spring court. But every night he had to listen to her nightmares, feel what she went through, you know, watching her relive which was taking place. And we already knew how she felt from the book.
Right.
So now we're seeing it from Rhys's perspective. Wouldn't it be something if someone wrote something from Tamlin's perspective? Maybe I should do it.
I mean, it would be kind of interesting. I mean,
but I would like to see the writer do it, though.
Yeah, because I think it would explain more about, like, because obviously we're speculating his motives and actions and thoughts and all this stuff, right? And you know, depending upon how you write that, it can sway, you know, what we actually think about him too,
right?
You know, because there is, I mean, there's a possibility that, like, let's say he did know, okay, maybe he just didn't know how to handle it. Now, I'm not saying that that was what he should have done, because that's not.
Right.
But let's say he's just somebody who just, you know, everybody has their own trauma and stuff, and he just didn't know how to deal with it, and he dealt with it in a bad way by just letting her deal with it on her own, which is not something that should have happened. I mean, I could see you doing it for a while. Okay, maybe this person wants space, whatnot. But to let that go on for months and months, that's just a little ridiculous.
That was the eye-opener for me with this book series, because, like Jen has said, she read the books, and I was starting to read the first book, and then the audio one came out. She was actually listening to that, and so we listened to it together. And so for me, first time experiencing it, and her already read it, probably twice by that time, and to see the difference just in the beginning of Mist and Fury, of how there was such a change in the atmosphere in the Spring Court compared to what book one was. And Jen always told me, just remember, book one's a fairy tale. Book one's a fairy tale. It is so spot on, the fact that book one is definitely a fairy tale. It is kind of like what we all dream of as little girls, you know. But book two is like real life. You know, there are people in this world that don't care about people they claim they love. And then there's people who do care about someone, and they have a connection or a bond with someone, or they just feel that close to a person, but they're so far apart that they can't be there for that person they really want to be. And
it also brings up the whole thing of, like, regardless of what someone's flaws are or what bad decisions people make. Yeah. There are certain people that just don't go together. True. Right? Like, just because you happen to be in a relationship with someone, or maybe even have feelings for someone, doesn't mean that you're actually compatible. Right. Because, you know, there's a lot of factors that go into, you know, having a successful relationship, and you have to kind of almost empower the other person in a sense. That person's supposed to improve your life, not bring you down or cause a lot of stress. Right. And I think that also is something that you see too, because obviously in the book, you know, they're mates, and so it's like, in this world, you know, there's nothing that's like 100% we know that someone's a mate, right? Right. But I think what that shows is that there's that compatibility aspect to it, right? Right. Like, regardless of what Tamlin's intentions were, or what he was feeling or what he was not feeling, he was clearly not compatible to be with her. No. And they were basically forcing themselves to be with each other. Exactly. And you know, you can almost like manipulate yourself into thinking that what you have is a good thing, which I think a lot of people do. Yes, you can. And then by doing that, you are missing out on a lot of other opportunities, or people that are out there that could exactly help you, make you feel better, right? Who understand you, because I think that's what it is too. It's that you know, if someone understands the other person, that's half of the compatibility right there. Right. Because Tamlin and FEYRE clearly do not understand one another. No. Not at all. No. Yeah, and where, like, you see Rhys, especially when you see both of their sides, right?
Right.
She doesn't understand him yet.
No.
Because she doesn't know him.
Correct.
Because he's been portrayed a certain way to her.
Right.
And he understands her, as you can see from, his perspective.
Right.
And obviously, as you go through the book, even from her perspective, you can see that he's understanding her, because then she starts to realize that.
Right.
But you really do see that a lot from when you read his perspective, that, he's doing a lot of the opposite things that Tamlin isn't doing. But I think a lot of that is because he understands FEYRE and how she is. And there's also a similarity between the two of them.
Right.
Which I think is also part of understanding somebody, is that you have to be not necessarily like similar in appearance, but similar in your personality or similar in your values.
Yes.
The way that you approach life and you think about things and stuff like that. And clearly, we haven't gotten to these parts yet in his perspective yet, but even just the High Lady thing.
Right.
Right. Like, Tamlin's like, well, there's no High Ladies. You'll never be a High Lady, kind of thing.
Right.
Where Rhys thinks that it's perfectly fine to break the rules and tradition and have there be a High Lady, right?
Especially when someone has gone above and beyond that FEYRE has done for people that she never knew.
Right.
To start off with, underneath the mountain. She went in there to save Tamlin and everybody else that was underneath there. And then as time goes on, throughout every book, she is doing something else where she, like the cereal. First time she meets the cereal and they get attacked. She didn't have to shoot the thing and let him go, but she did.
Right.
She was kind to him because he did her a favor, and now she's returning the kindness.
Right.
Because a person with compassion would do that. A person who has morals and values that hold themselves to a particular expectation of themselves would want the same treatment back.
Right.
And so she gave that back. So the next time she meets the cereal, she didn't have to worry about it. They did their little thing, and then the third time they meet, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't gotten that far.
Well, I mean, we really shouldn't be listening to this if
you
haven't read all the
But
books.
I'm just saying, so if you got this far and you haven't read the book to where I'm getting to, please stop. But, the serial knew that he was being followed and tracked, and people wanted him dead, or wanted him, period. And he still went and visited FEYRE because he knew she was looking for him, and he shows up, and FEYRE tries to protect him, but he ends up protecting her, and he ends up dying. And they, just by the way she treated him and he treated her, they created their own little bond with each other. And what gets me is that the first time I heard him tell her to stay close to her High Lord, I thought it was Tamlin.
The first book.
The first book.
Yeah.
But that's not who he was talking about, and that's not who he was ever talking about. He was talking about Rhys. Because it wasn't too long after that she had to go under the mountain. And that's when all the big stuff started. And then it hit me. Because if she stayed close to him, he was able to help her. He was able to do this. He was able to do that. He healed her. He did what he could to keep her alive, so she could do what it was that she needed to do to stay alive, hoping that she could break this curse so everyone could be free.
Even if even if she decides one day that she's going to write a little small book with Tamlin's perspective or something.
Right.
And let's say it completely explains everything, reasons why he does everything. Let's just throw that out there. Okay?
Right.
It still comes down to the fact that everything that he does, even in the first book,
Mm-hmm.
is opposite to who she is as a person.
Yes.
Because, like, and you made me think of it when you said he was just sitting there, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because Lucian I think it's Lucian that explains it. He tells FEYRE that he's just sitting there because he doesn't want Amarantha to get angry. So he tries to act like he doesn't care about FEYRE. So he's like doing it because he thinks that he's protecting her that way. So I know you're like, I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just explaining,
No,
right? Like,
I know.
But what I'm saying is that in his mind, let's say,
Yeah.
okay, that I'm not saying that, you know, how do I explain this? A lot of us, and
Mm-hmm.
clearly FEYRE and Rhys also feel the same way,
Mm-hmm.
right? That we think that you should be proactive.
Right.
Okay. But his values clearly are not that. Okay. His values are, okay, I am protecting her by being silent and I'm resigned to the situation, right? Because he shows that a lot too. He just accepts the situations that he's in. He's not a fighter. He really isn't.
He's not.
He's not a fighter. His values are, I'm just going to do what I can, and if I think I can't do anything, I'm not going to do anything, right? Which doesn't really, a lot of people that doesn't fly with, right? But for example, like, some people want to live in a fancy house, want to put on dresses and have someone take care of them, right?
Mm.
That's the kind of a person that he wants. Right. He wants somebody that he can take care of,
manipulate,
protect,
yes,
control. To, you know what I mean?
But protect in how way? If he's not willing to fight with someone else other than the person that he's living with,
mm-hmm.
how is he supposed to protect them? Because the only time he fights
mm-hmm.
is when he's pissed off at someone within his home. Then he shreds everything in his home. And
he has anger management.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, he has a lot of issues. But I'm just saying, like, to show compatibility.
Right.
You know, there's a person out there,
right,
that has values that align more with what he is saying.
Right.
Now, obviously, we are not those kind of people. And
no.
There's a lot of people out there that feel the same way.
Right.
Where it's like, you know, this is not... You know, I believe in people's freedom and independence, and people should do what they want to do, and everyone should be treated equally, and, you know, you should fight for what you want, or you should fight to protect people, you know, so on and so forth, right?
Right.
And that's what I mean. It's like, obviously these are big, grand things that I'm throwing out here, but it's that if you're not aligning...
Right.
It's you have a toxic situation, even if the person might not even be toxic. But I mean, that's the fairy tale aspect, right, of the first book is
right.
It's that whole, like, you know, you don't know kind of what you're getting into, I guess, with people, right? It's not.
Well, here it is you got this High Lord that she didn't even know that he was really a High Lord. He shows up at her house because she shot and killed one of his buddies. And kind of in a threatening way saying, well, I need to take her with me because she killed someone. But by the time he gets her back to the house, even though he's mad that his friend's gone, he doesn't imprison her.
See, okay, so I'm going to interrupt you here.
That changes.
So when I read it for the first time, okay, I never liked Tim. I wouldn't say that I never liked him, but through the entire thing, I was kind of like, I didn't understand what he was doing. Because nothing added up. So, like, what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
She killed his friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when she shows up, Lucian is really upset.
Right.
Because she killed this guy. Yeah, she doesn't know who he is. But he was supposedly one of them.
Right.
And Lucian's mad, but Tamlin is just kind of like, eh. And instead of just like outright killing her,
right?
He gives her an opportunity to come live there, and then instead of just letting her just go off into the wild somewhere, he puts her up in this like fancy estate and like takes care of her. I was immediately suspicious. I was like, okay, he wants something. What is it? What does he want? Because it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So through the whole thing, I was already kind of like, you know, I didn't hate him. I didn't like dislike him. I just didn't know what
I was the same way.
I wasn't 100% sure what was going on. And so I never fell for the whole like some people when they read it, they actually get, you know, when she actually starts opening up to Tamlin, they think it's like, oh, it's so cute, or oh, that's so sweet, and like they actually kind of buy it. When I read it, I never got to that point. Because I was always constantly going, okay, something just doesn't feel real to me. Like there's just something going on, and it was never answered obviously until later on.
Right.
And so I was always constantly waiting for that piece of information to come out. So the only scene that I think I felt even a little bit like I maybe like honest, like that I felt like I could kind of trust, was that scene after Callan May when he was totally wanting her. Like I felt that because I believe that he did. Right? So that scene, I felt it.
I did not believe that scene. When he showed up on their doorstep after she killed his friend.
Yeah.
I thought he was very rude. And I was like,
oh yeah.
I was like, oh, he's gonna hurt her. That was my first instinct. And then it kind of stayed that way as I got to the wall, and I guess he put her to sleep. And
well, yeah, and that's another thing too. Like, he put her to sleep not because he wanted to put her to sleep. He put her to sleep because he didn't want to hear her talk anymore.
Right. And I'm like, why? You're taking her away from her family. She's very young. You put her to sleep, so you can't see where she's going, and she can't talk.
Well, I understood why he didn't want her to see where she was going.
Right. But still, so... But you still think that he's really adamant about making her pay.
Yeah, that's
for what's going on. And when they get there, he takes her
never pays.
She gets she takes him in the house. The other one's mad at her, and he's got to be nice to her, and he really doesn't want to, and that's why he was cocky to her for the best part of the book. But she's like, you know, why you letting me, you know, she was questioning the fact of why is she allowed to eat there? Oh, why does she have this room? Okay, now days later he's giving her clothes to wear, and it's like, okay, he goes, well, you can either live this way or you can live this way. Choice is yours. And I'm like, what's he up to?
Yeah.
But then, you know, Lucian was always tormenting her. It was Lucian who told her about the cereal, which she needed to have to entrap him. And that's not what she needed, but
also, too, like, and I think that's why, because I watch a lot of book talk and Instagram stuff on ACOTAR. And a lot of most people like Lucian more than a lot of other characters in the book, the first book. And I wonder if it is because he is real, right? Because Tamlin, through the whole thing, regardless of whether you fall for it, whatever he's doing or not,
right,
isn't real in the first book, right? No. He's hiding everything from FEYRE, right? And Lucian is angry, and he's being himself through the whole thing,
right.
And it's just, there's something about that I think people pick up on.
And that night he came home from Calumet, he still was under the effects.
He was under the effects, but I mean, sexually, I could believe it. That was the one thing I could believe.
That was
the love part of it. I never believed
sexually,
that. Sexually, yes, and that's why I bought that scene. I was like, yeah, he was under the influence, but he had already had sex with someone by that point already,
right?
And so I bought the fact that yes, that scene was real. You know, that was fine.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time, I couldn't trust him at all.
No.
And so I had a really hard time when we got to those scenes where she was opening up to him.
Yeah.
To where I could believe it. I couldn't believe it because I was like, this just doesn't seem real to me. Like,
the parts that got me was, okay, when he started giving her the clothes, I was like, okay. But then when he actually cleared out the one room and gave her a painting room, so she had her own little art studio, that hit the heartstrings for me because I like crafts and I paint and I do things. And if some guy gave me that, because they also made me go to the Notebook.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you know, I get to paint. So it's like, all right, maybe he does care. And then when we get to the motherfucker, you know, but it was also some of the things that he did and said, like when she wanted to leave and go with him, even before they went under the mountain. No, you stay here. It'd be safer for you to be here. She didn't want to be there. There was no, Lucian was going off. He was going off. She didn't know anybody, you know. You brought her to a place she doesn't know. She's a human. And the rest of the people gossip and talk about her while they're working there, you know, your court people. Right. So, you know, she is the only other person that she talks to is the one that tends to her.
And I do think, obviously now looking back on it, I do think that Tamlin does love her in his own way, and I do think he does care about her, but I think what the problem is that he is a coward, and so, which is why he will stand up for her when he thinks he can win. But if he thinks he's in a situation where he knows that he can't handle it, or he is not the strongest person in this room, he will not do anything.
No,
right? Because there are times, like in the first book, where he does protect her from various creatures and things, right? Like he's out there protecting the land or whatnot. Yeah. So when he feels like he is the boss and he's able to do things, like he did send her away to save her life, even though Rhys is the one that scared him to do it. Right. He did put her first because he could have kept her there to get her to say "I love you." Right. To break the curse. Right. But he sent her away. Yeah. And stuff like that, and decided he was just going to take whatever he got, you know, and just deal with the situation, right? Right. But then when you look back, there's all these other situations of like, well, why the fuck didn't he do anything? Like when Rhys shows up in the first book and notices that she's like hidden from them or whatever, and he basically like scares them, and he tells Tamlin to beg, and what does Tamlin do? He gets on the floor and he begs. Right? Under the mountain, does absolutely nothing. Nope. Right? The scene we just read, the wedding, right? FEYRE begs Tamlin to help her too, right? When Rhys is there.
Yeah, we haven't even spoken about that part yet.
So when, you know, she obviously is telling someone to get her out of the wedding. Right. But then when Rhys shows up, she's like, she wants Tamlin to not take her. She's afraid of the Night Court. Right. Because she's heard all of these awful things. Right. She heard that Amarantha used it as inspiration for Under the Mountain. She's got a lot of PTSD from Under the Mountain. Right. She's afraid she's going back to some place that's like Under the Mountain. Right. So she's basically telling she doesn't want Tamlin to let her go there. Right. And what does Tamlin do?
Backs away and lets her go. Yeah. Because one, they have that agreement, even though Rhys says neither one of them know what the bond stands for. What the agreement is with the bond. Yeah.
It's funny too, because like in his POV, he even says, so like at the beginning, Tamlin's like, you know, he gets mad, right? And he's like, don't take her, right? Don't take her, whatever. Yeah. And then he just backs off. He just backs off completely, right? And then Rhys is like, "Wow, this is really boring." Like, because he didn't do anything, nothing. He just like whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, well, I guess I he's just gonna take her, whatever.
Yeah. It's crazy.
But that's what he does, right? It's like he's a coward, and he's like, there's no way I'm gonna win this fight, so I'm not even gonna push it.
Right.
And I'm sure there's 50 billion other periods of time that he does it throughout the series. I just can't think of it right now.
Yes.
But those are just the ones that I'm thinking of.
Yes. But just sticking with these two, I mean, like I said, now we're on the second story that we read, which takes place with FEYRE kind of coming down the aisle to get married. First, well, actually, it starts off with Rhys in bed, waking up.
The second story?
Yeah. And
no, that's when he's like, it starts right as he's there. So, like, he just shows up.
Yeah, but I mean, he shows up there at the...
Yeah, the first story is everything that leads
up to that.
And then it ends, and then he says, like, hello, FEYRE darling, and then it ends.
Okay, that's
right. And then
right.
the second story starts where, like, he's now at the wedding.
Yeah, he just winnows in. Because he can hear Morgan say something as he's leaving.
Because he just winnows out. Leaves.
Because he hears her asking for help. And he
wasn't going to step in.
He wasn't.
Because when you read his POV, she's begging and begging and begging for someone to save her. He's just like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
But Tamlin reaches out his hand to her, and she says to herself in her head, no.
And she steps away.
And steps back. And he goes, that's all I needed. And whoosh, there he goes. And he comes in there, and all this black mist swirling around him. And he steps out all dapper and pulls down his
and he changes his clothes.
Yep, he changes his clothes as he steps out of it. And he's all dapper and everything, because he was going to a wedding. And everybody is screaming and trying to back up away from him. And Tamlin steps forward and his guards step forward. And they all like getting ready to pull out their swords. And it's just funny because he's like standing next to FEYRE, is kind of like saying, I wouldn't do that if I were you, in a sense. And FEYRE is looking at him. She's looking at Tamlin, looking at him, looking at Tamlin. And they kind of like retreat a little bit. And people are climbing over their seats and everything, trying to get away from what's going on. So he pretty much cleared the room. It was less work than he had to do. And
it was just Tamlin, FEYRE, and Lucien left.
Yeah, and Rhys just said what he had to say and put his arms around FEYRE, and they were gone. And he took her back to the night court, and the first thing they did when they landed, she's looking out of all these beautiful stars in the sky, and the moon shining, and just and herself saying that what a beautiful sight,
And he also notices that too, because he brings up the first time that they met, right? And because when she first meets him, she says that he's the most beautiful man she's ever seen. And when she first arrives in the night court, she says it's the most beautiful place she's ever seen.
Yeah. So, but she hits him with a shoe. She threw a shoe at him, and then she threw it again.
Because they're, having their little arguing banter thing that they do.
Tit for tat. She calls him a prick.
And because she doesn't know how to use her powers at this point.
Right. No,
she just throws a shoe.
Yeah, she throws a shoe. Aims very well and hits him smack dead in the back of the head.
Because he was not expecting that.
Nope. And then he turned around and he goes, you wouldn't dare. And
he did. Oh, yeah, he did.
She flung the other shoe at him with more force, and he grabbed it from the air and turned it into dust. Time to hit the floor. And they just and that's what, as they banter back and forth with each other, she starts asking him questions after he pushes her to a point. And it's the concern of, do I have to go down there? And he goes, no, I'm not going to take you down there. This is my home. They're not allowed up here. They know better if they come up here. No one's going to bother you here. You're safe here, There's just the people that serve me here, And so she was petrified of feel like she was going to be put down, There's the dungeon down there that, that's where she killed the worm. It's where she died. That's where she killed someone. Well, 2 people, that's where she fought for her life. That's, a lot of PTSD was brought on by being down there. I mean, that's what the fuck kept her up at night for 3 months. So...
And also when because obviously I'm talking about something later, but when she does go to the Court of Nightmares, which is
later on.
Right. She realizes that it is really more of an inspiration. It's not like it's not like an exact replica of Under the Mountain. It was just, and it's like Amarantha, got inspiration from it, but it's not like walking into the exact same thing.
It wasn't. No.
Yeah.
It's a bit different. A little more tastefulness because
it's also a city.
Throne room is what Rhys kind of wanted it to be. But I mean, there is a royal family that lives there and another High Lord that lives there, but he doesn't rule that night court. It's Rhys that rules that night court. And there is a city underneath there. I mean...
Well, that's what she said, and I'm sure we'll get there at some point, but she mentions that was one of the main differences, was that, Under the Mountain was more of just kind of like a lair,
Right.
Where the Court of Nightmares is literally like you're walking into this city or this kingdom or something.
Right.
It's a very different vibe.
Right. Well, Under a Mountain was a little further down too, underneath.
Well, that's in a total. It's not even in the Night Court.
Yeah, isn't it
it's in the middle?
Middle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the middle. It's in that wild area that's nobody belongs.
Yeah.
Nobody rules it. Or
that
whatnot.
real thin piece there.
But
no.
But yeah, she has PTSD, even just going under the ground in general.
Yeah.
She has PTSD.
Yeah.
So.
And then, Rhys pops up. Well, the last time she saw Rhys was, Under the Mountain. And them saying goodbye to each other. But if it wasn't for him and the thing she has, on her hand. Was it this one or this one? Is it right hand or left hand?
It's this.
Yeah.
Sand.
This eye.
Yeah.
The eye.
And it's
it's
sad because in his point of view, throughout this whole thing, when you first read it, you don't really know that he's putting a facade on.
Right.
But you really see that he is really sad.
Right.
Because he thinks that she hates him and, all of that. And he doesn't really understand why he's doing what he's doing, but he feels compelled to do it. And
well, he knows she's his mate.
Yeah.
He said it. He knew. It clicked for him. It clicked once he put that tattoo on her.
And I don't know if I actually agree with him, to be honest. I don't think she hates him. I think
she hates what it reminds her.
Because if you think about the last scene that they had in the first book,
right?
They were perfectly fine together.
Yes.
They were talking and
yes. She thanked him.
Yeah. And so I don't think she hates him. I think a lot of it is she's scared.
Mm-hmm.
The whole Under the Mountain thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think, yes, she's angry about the bargain. I do think that. And I think a lot of it is that, mostly. That he just kind of took her. And she's scared about, whether she's going to be underground and that. And then also the fact that because she is really big about, obviously with Tamlin, she's at the point where she's in that Stockholm syndrome sense, right? Where she's not acting like herself. She's just so manipulated that she's going along with everything. But she's somebody who needs freedom and independence, as you learn later, right? And so I think a lot of it is she's angry because the bargain is she has no control over that, and he's just coming and taking her away and not giving her a choice. And I think that's why she lashes out, and that's why I think she's angry. But I don't think she actually hates him.
I don't think she hates him either. I agree with you. I think has to do with a lot what she went through underneath there. The location of where they're at, what he represents, what other people, what Tamlin has filled her head with, what Lucian has said. Because if she steps back after what other people tell her and remembers what he did for her while they were under there, you know, he healed her. She was going to die. And he brought her back from the brink of the death. Hence the reason why she has what she has on her hand. And she even bargained with him. You know, it was supposed to be, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And she bargained him down to a month. Or a week.
To a week, yeah.
Yeah, a month would have been better, but whatever. I know, Rhys. Oh, whoo, sexy. That boy. Yeah, you know, if she analyzes it and separates what people say, what she went through, remember how she felt, doing that, categorizing those things, weighing the pros and cons of those things, of which she actually experienced herself, and then making from that, I think that's how she comes about.
It's totally how she comes about.
Yeah.
Because the longer she's there.
Yeah, because, I mean, he goes out of his way of helping her with her illiteracy problem. So he teaches her to write. She couldn't write. Or read, you know. Because she didn't go to school.
Right, and she didn't have anyone really.
Her mom was gone, so her dad didn't do anything for her. Her sister sure enough fuck didn't help her.
And I guess because they were, you know, poor, that wasn't really high priority.
Right. So, you know, he just does things for her a little bit different than what Tamlin did. Granted, I know Tamlin gave her the paints and everything to paint, and she was doing that, but she could never paint red again.
Right, and it goes back to understanding.
Yeah.
Right? Because he gives her the paint set. They have that argument in the second book. And, he thinks he's doing this great thing for her by giving her this paint set. And she freaks. She has a panic attack because there's red in the paint set. And she hasn't been painting, right? And this just shows you that he doesn't get her.
Right.
Because how many times have they been together now? And he hasn't noticed that she hasn't been painting. They haven't talked about it or anything. And he just buys her. And
then they got this crazy bimbo. She's a priestess, my ass. You know, helping with the wedding. But this priestess was doing the wedding for herself. She wasn't taking into consideration anything that FEYRE wanted. FEYRE didn't want roses. She didn't want red roses anyway. She didn't want any red anywhere. And I'm sorry, you're throwing red roses down the freaking thing and expecting her to walk down an aisle with red roses at her feet? She has PTSD. And you're doing what you want to do, and she's already voiced her opinion, but you did what you wanted to do. Well, whose wedding is this? Yours or hers? And then she's in this fucked up gown, I'm sorry. But
I've seen a lot of people, you remember Labyrinth? I've seen people that have like, that's how they imagine her wedding dress to be, that white, big, puffy, like,
it wouldn't surprise me.
Looking gown.
Probably. It wouldn't surprise me. But I mean, it's got all
or maybe
these
the
tools
enchanted.
yeah, that too. Enchanted.
Like, white
it's just too big.
Yeah.
You know, it swallowed her up. But I mean, look what happens when Freya decides to find out where to stand at a certain time. That's funny.
I mean,
Freya's the one that's all glowing.
I mean,
not her.
I wouldn't have even put it past her to have done that. She probably wanted FEYRE to gone.
Of course she did.
Because she could have tried for Tamlin, right?
Yes.
I know when FEYRE was there, and when the whole Tamlin thing wasn't working out, that's why she was like all over Lucian all the time, because that was the only other person she could go to.
Right. And she was using Lucian.
Yeah,
straight up. And because she was using Lucian and she pissed off Freya made her pay with her hand. Which I find absolutely perfect. So,
but I mean that scene where Rhys like shows his interaction with Ianthe, where she tries to come on to him.
That was
I mean, that's how she finds out. That's like the first scene where she really sees like what she's really trying to do. Because in that scene, she actually basically admits her intentions in that scene, right? Like he tells her like she wants to like have his children and all this crap, right? Like, and that's where FEYRE sees what she's actually trying to do and understands her motivations and stuff, and because then she's thinking about Lucian, because she knows about Lucian too, you know, and she's like everything's clicking together now, and she understands.
Oh no, crazy bitch.
Because she tries
and wasn't she actually trying to seduce Lucian in the woods when she comes across?
Yeah,
it?
But she just doesn't just seduce people. She like actually like sexually like assaults them.
Yeah, I know.
Because she did that to Rhys too. But man, that she must have balls to do that to Rhys.
No. It's like, bitch, you're gonna get winnowed somewhere and dropped to your death. Or Azrael just come in and mind blow you, and it won't be a good mind blow because you won't have nothing left. But to know that, Freya goes into her mind and makes her smash her own hand. Yes.
Yep.
Oh, ow, ow, ow! A tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. So now Freya safely in her bed screams into her pillow and then passes out.
Right.
Sleeping.
And I think Rhys talks about how like the thoughts that are going on in her head.
Yeah.
And how she, you know, she's kind of like, she's sad, but at the same time, she's actually kind of like relieved, and she thinks it's such a pretty place, and
she thinks it's a pretty place, but she's not liking him too much right now. She doesn't have good thoughts about him right now, but
right.
Yeah, it's understandable.
Well, yeah, because he called the bargain in.
Yeah, and
she thinks he did it on like to be an ass, basically. Yeah.
But in reality, he did it because she was asking for help.
Right, and he wasn't ever intending on actually even using the bargain at all.
No, he wasn't. He was going to leave her be. Let her marry Tamlin. That's what he was going to do because that's what she wanted. But she said no to Tamlin. That's all he needed. I'm going to go get my mate. I'm going to go get my mate. Is all he could think. And whoop. Man, I wish I could winnow.
God, I wish I could winnow too. I wish I could fly. I wish I had wings.
I wish I could fly too. I wish the inner dragon in me would just pop out with wings. And I can go anywhere I want it in the world. I would just travel. Tie a little suitcase to my back. But, I mean, winter would be great. I can just pop here, pop there. Wouldn't need a passport. No one could ever...
I'd have to ward areas so that you can't just pop in and out. It'd have to be like the House of Wind. Why?
What if I say, Jen, come on, let's go. We're going to Japan.
That's fine. You'll have to just pop outside and then I'll meet you there.
Fuck that!
You're not just... What if I'm, like, doing something in here privately? I don't want you just popping in.
I'll knock first before I enter.
No, you won't. When Rhys arrives back the first time in Valaris, we find out that he only tells more about the mating bond.
Yep.
He doesn't tell anyone else.
That's right, because he had to get it off his chest. He had to tell someone. It was brimming with excitement.
And she was the first person that was there.
Yeah, and plus it's his family, too.
Yeah.
It's a cousin. So the rest of them are family. Mm-hmm. That's his family that he brought together, but she is family. And she is the one that's there for all of them when they're down. So, and they need someone to talk to because she does have a lot of empathy and a lot of compassion. So, and she knows how to talk everybody off the ledges, which is good. So...
But as we know, they all figure it out on their own.
Of course they do. Once they meet, them two going at each other.
Amryn knows the first time she meets FEYRE, if you remember.
Well, she still has her gift of angelicness, so...
I think she smells it on her or something, from what I remember. When she goes to dinner in the House of Wind or something, there's like a scene where I think when she first walks in and she like sniffs the air or something, and then she says something to Rhys or something, and I think that's what it is.
Maybe. I don't remember. There's so much.
It's been a while, but I think it's in that scene. I just don't remember if it was a smell or something, but it's in that scene where she first like walks in and whatnot. I don't know when the others figure it out, but it's probably just because, like you said, they're constantly
they're
like
bickering
ridiculous
with each other. Yeah, and the guys are like.
And then it just gets worse.
Because they kind of back away from them.
but it's like, it gets worse in a different sort of way. Like, in the beginning, like, she's really angry.
Right.
But, like, obviously, further and further along, it's more
a playful, like angry. Prick. Asshole. I think her favorite word to him is prick.
Yeah, I think so. And it's also the little letters they write, or the little,
back and forth? Yeah.
God, I wish. That'd be so much fun.
Well, I tell you what I wish. That's pretty cool. But what if we could actually send them on fire?
Oh, you're talking about Shadow Hunters? That would be cool, too.
That'd
be kind of freaky, though. Like, it would, especially if you were, like, really calm and peaceful, and then something's on fire in your face. I don't know about that.
As soon as you touch it, it goes out. It's just trying to get your attention. Be sound asleep and all of a sudden, like, wow! Son of a bitch! Anyway.
But it's funny because he starts that to get her to learn how to read and write.
Yes.
So you don't even, like, realize it as you go through. Like he makes her write those stupid sentences, and she just gets angry.
I think Rhys is handsome, or
yeah, he's the most handsome, or he's the, like, I don't know, the most spectacular High-Low. I know there was like 50 billion things.
I know, but the first one is the most handsome man I've ever seen. I was like, oh boy, he's making her eat her words, or write her words.
Yeah. And then, of course, they start writing, right? And then she, like, over time, she just naturally, over time, like, learns how to read and write because they're constantly in correspondence with each other all the time.
And the books that was he started with the alphabet or something? There's something that and she gets to the point where she's like, I don't want to do it.
Well, yeah, in the beginning, she's writing sentences and stuff like that. Yeah.
But I mean,
because she knows some stuff, right? Right. It's just she's proficient. She
can't put the two together.
Yeah.
And that's what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
Was help her draw the line to each. But yeah. So anyway, I don't know where we're at.
I have no idea where we're at either, but
yeah, that's the 2 stories we read. So she's asleep in bed. And I don't know what the other stories we'll read next time. But we are going on our 4th year with Eclectic Soul.
Is it?
I think so.
Oh.
I think it's 4th year. I think that's what it said it was or we are in our 4th year. So, wow.
I feel very old.
Oh, well.
I mean, personally.
Well, yeah, maybe. So we do appreciate everyone that watches and everyone that listens to the podcast and follows us and supports us and listen to me banter.
We do have a lot coming up, though.
Yes,
a lot going on. We're doing shadow work stuff on the audio for the audio podcast.
Yes.
So we'll be doing that. And then we actually have a lot of books coming up, too.
Yeah.
We'll probably be putting this on hold for a while because we have books to read. We will be finishing A Court of Silver Flames.
Yes.
The next time. And the ACOTAR series will be done for now.
Until
the next one comes out in a year or so.
Yes.
We will be doing Fourth Wing in Crescent City. Yeah. And then we'll see how everything goes. We may do Throne of Glass. We may do it. It just depends on how we feel. Yeah. It might not be for a long, long while, though.
Yeah. So, because we got a lot of books. And then other things come up. We are Eclectic Soul. I'm Jen. That's Jen. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time. Bye. Blessed be. Happy Maban, which already passed.
And
blessed Samhain.